My name is Emma. I'm 28 years old. And the day my sister stole $500,000 from my account, I was sitting in my car outside a coffee shop in Austin, trying to decide if I wanted oat milk or almond. My phone buzzed with a notification. I ignored it at first. Then it buzzed again, and again, 6 times in less than 10 seconds. When I finally looked down, the screen was filled with withdrawal alerts from my bank. Not the usual, your balance is low kind. These were transaction alerts. Multiple transfers, all to the same recipient, Jessica, my sister. The first one was for $50,000, then another 50, then 100. I watched the numbers climb in real time, my thumb frozen over the screen. The final transfer brought the total to exactly $500,000. My entire savings, everything I had worked for since I was 19, gone in less than 3 minutes. I sat there for a long time. Not crying, not screaming, just still. The kind of stillness that comes before something breaks or before something changes forever. In the back of my mind, I could already feel the edges of a plan forming. But I didn't act on it yet. I needed to understand what she had done. And more importantly, I needed to let her believe she had won. Before I tell you what happened 3 days later, when the bank called her, not me, let me ask you something. Have you ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you? Someone who knew exactly where to hurt you because they helped build you? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. This channel is for people who learn that silence is sometimes the first step of a strategy. I met Jessica when I was 8. She was 11. We weren't raised together. She lived with our grandmother in Florida for most of her childhood, while I stayed with our parents in Texas. When she moved in with us, I thought it would be like getting the big sister I always wanted. For a while it was. She taught me how to do winged eyeliner. She let me borrow her clothes. She told me stories about our father's side of the family that my mother never mentioned. But there was always a current underneath, a sense that Jessica saw our lives as a competition. Every achievement I made, she had to match or diminish. When I got a scholarship for college, she told everyone I only got it because our parents were broke. When I graduated summa cum laude, she said it was a party school anyway. I learned to smile and let her words slide. I told myself she was just insecure, that she needed to feel important. And for years, I let her have that. I worked 3 jobs while I was in college. Not because I had to. My parents helped where they could. But because I wanted to build something that no one could take from me. I started saving aggressively. By 22, I had $20,000. By 25, I had crossed 200,000. I worked in marketing, first for a tech startup, then as a freelancer. I was good at my job, better than good. By 27, I had built a portfolio of high-paying clients and a savings account that I looked at every morning like a security blanket. Jessica, meanwhile, floated. She worked retail, then lost her job. She moved back in with our grandmother. Then our grandmother passed away, and she moved in with our parents. For a while, she stayed in my old bedroom. I'd come home for holidays and find my things rearranged, my childhood journals sitting in a box labeled junk. I never said anything. I told myself it was just stuff. Then, about a year ago, Jessica started asking for money. Small amounts at first, 100 here, 200 there. I gave it without thinking. She was family. She was struggling. It felt like the right thing to do. Over time, the requests grew. $500 for rent. $1,000 for a car repair. I kept a spreadsheet in my head, but I never added it up. I didn't want to know. The last time I gave her money was 2 months before she drained my account. She called me at midnight crying. She said she was going to lose her apartment. She said she had nowhere else to go. I transferred her $3,000 and went to bed feeling like a good sister. I didn't know then that she was already planning to take everything. What I didn't know, what no one knew, was that Jessica had been logging into my online banking for months. I found out later, through the bank's investigation, that she had gotten my password from a conversation we had 2 years earlier. I was helping her set up her own account and used my login as an example. She had memorized it. She had been watching my balances grow, tracking my deposits, waiting for the number to hit a threshold that made it worth her risk. When I started making more money, she started planning. The morning of the theft, I had been to a client meeting. I landed a contract worth $120,000. It was the biggest deal of my career. I was supposed to call my parents and celebrate. Instead, I sat in my car, staring at the screen, watching my life's work disappear. The bank's fraud department called me within 20 minutes of the transfers. A woman named Denise, calm and efficient, asked if I had authorized the transactions. I told her no. She asked if I knew the recipient. I said yes. I told her it was my sister. There was a pause on her end, one of those pauses where you can hear someone choosing their next words carefully. "Ma'am," she said, "I'm going to place a hold on your account and start an investigation. I need you to come into a branch as soon as possible." I asked her what would happen to my money. She said they would attempt to recover the funds, but because the transfers were made through my own credentials, the process could take weeks. Or longer. She asked if I wanted to file a police report. I told her I would think about it. I didn't go to the police that day. I didn't call my parents. I didn't confront my sister. I went home, sat on my couch, and did something that, at the time, felt like the hardest thing I had ever done. I did nothing. I let her have the money. For 3 days, I let her believe she had gotten away with it. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to have your back, drop a purple heart in the comments. You're not alone. We're building a community here of people who chose themselves. And if this story resonates with you, hit subscribe. More truth is coming. The first day was the hardest. I woke up at 3 a.m. with my chest so tight I thought I was having a heart attack. I checked my bank account again, hoping it had been a dream. The balance was still zero. My sister's name was still in the transaction history, a line item next to $500,000. I spent the morning making a list, not of what I lost, but of what I still had. My clients, my skills, my reputation, the contract I had signed the day before. I calculated how long it would take me to rebuild, assuming I started from nothing. 6 years, if I saved aggressively. 8 years if I took any time off. I let the number settle in my chest like a stone. Then I started planning. The bank had told me they would attempt to recover the funds, but I knew the odds. Jessica had used my login. She had my password. To the bank, it looked like a legitimate transfer. To the police, it would look like a family dispute. I had seen cases like this before, cases where the victim never saw a cent because the system was designed to protect transactions, not people. So I decided to change the system's mind. I called the bank the next morning. Not the fraud department this time. I asked to speak with a branch manager. I told them I wanted to escalate my case. I gave them permission to review every transaction Jessica had ever made from my account. I asked them to pull call recordings, login timestamps, IP addresses, anything that could prove she had accessed my account without my permission. And then I called my sister. I dialed her number with my hand steady. She answered on the second ring, her voice light, almost cheerful. "Hey, sis. What's up?" I told her I had noticed some unusual activity on my account. I asked if she knew anything about it. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing, quick and shallow, like she was deciding which lie to tell. "Oh, that," she said. "I borrowed it. You said I could. Remember? You told me if I ever needed anything, just... I never said you could take $500,000, Jessica." She laughed, a sharp, high laugh that I had heard her use before when she was caught. "I was going to pay it back. I just needed a little time. You always have so much, Emma. You don't even look at your account. I figured you wouldn't notice for a while." I let her talk. I let her explain how she had been struggling, how she had debts I didn't know about, how she deserved some of what I had because I had always been the lucky one. I listened to every word, and I memorized every justification. When she was done, I said, "I want the money back by Friday." She promised she would. She said she would wire it that afternoon. She didn't. I knew she wouldn't. That's why I had called. The call was recorded, not by me but by the bank. I had requested they monitor any communication related to my case. Every word she said, every admission she made, was already being documented. That evening, I sent her a text message. I kept it simple. Please confirm in writing that you took $500,000 from my account and that you will return it by Friday. She replied within minutes. 7 words. I'll get it to you soon. Don't worry. 7 words. That was all I needed. By the end of the second day, I had built a file. Bank statements showing the withdrawals. Screenshots of our text conversation. A timeline of every login from her IP address. The bank had traced it to her apartment. I also had the call recording, though I hadn't listened to it again. I didn't need to. I already knew what it contained. I called the bank again on the morning of the 3rd day. I asked to speak with the same manager. I told her I was ready to proceed with the investigation. I also told her I wanted to authorize a special request. When the bank contacted my sister about the disputed transfers, I wanted them to do it in a way that made her believe she was being given a choice. Here's what I learned from that conversation. Banks have a lot of power when they want to use it. The manager told me they could freeze the recipient account immediately, pending investigation. They could reverse the transfers if they found evidence of fraud. And if they found that my sister had accessed my account without my permission, they could flag her for bank fraud, a federal crime with serious consequences. I asked them to do all of it, and I asked them to let me know the moment they reached out to her. I didn't have to wait long. At 2:47 p.m. on the 3rd day, my phone rang. It was the branch manager. Miss Carter, she said. I was using my professional name for the case. We have contacted your sister and informed her of the investigation. She has been given 24 hours to return the funds voluntarily. If she does not, we will proceed with legal action. I thanked her and hung up. 20 minutes later, my sister called me. I didn't answer. She called again, and again, 11 times in 45 minutes. I watched my phone light up with her name and felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, just the quiet certainty that I had done everything right. Then the text started. Emma, what is going on? The bank called me. They said you're accusing me of fraud. You need to call them back and tell them this was a mistake. I'm going to lose everything. Please. Why aren't you answering? I'll pay you back. I swear. Just tell them to stop. I saved every message. I didn't respond. At 5 p.m., my phone rang again. This time it wasn't my sister. It was my mother. My mother's voice was tight, controlled in a way that told me she had been rehearsing this conversation since the moment my sister called her. Emma, what is going on with your sister and the bank? I told her the truth. I said Jessica had taken $500,000 from my account without my permission. I said the bank was investigating. I said she had 24 hours to return the money before the situation escalated beyond anything I could control. My mother was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "She's your sister. You can't do this to family." I had expected that. I had been preparing for it since the first transfer notification appeared on my phone. But hearing the words still landed somewhere in my chest, hard and cold. She took everything I have, Mom. I know, but she's struggling. She's always struggled. You know that. You have so much. You can rebuild. I didn't argue. I had learned, years ago, that arguing with my mother about Jessica was like arguing with the tide. She would always choose the child who needed her more. And in her mind, the child who needed her more was always the one who made worse decisions. Mom, I said carefully, I'm not doing anything. The bank is. If Jessica returns the money by tomorrow, everything goes away. No police. No charges. Just a transfer back to my account. That's all she has to do. My mother let out a breath. I'll talk to her. She hung up. I sat in the silence of my apartment and waited. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Not an apology. Not a promise to return the money. A single sentence. You're going to ruin my life over money you don't even need. I stared at the words for a long time. Then I saved the message, took a screenshot, and added it to the file I had been building. I wanted every piece of evidence I could gather. Not because I needed it. The bank already had more than enough, but because I wanted to remember, if I ever doubted myself, exactly how she responded when given a chance to make things right. She didn't return the money that night. She didn't return it the next morning. At 9 a.m., I called the branch manager and asked for an update. She told me my sister had not contacted the bank since the initial call. The funds were still in Jessica's account. She asked if I wanted to proceed with the fraud investigation. I said yes. That afternoon, the bank froze Jessica's account. They flagged the transfers as unauthorized and initiated a reversal. The process, the manager told me, would take about 5 business days. But the moment she said the words, I felt something loosen in my chest. A weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. Then she told me something else. Because my sister had accessed my account using my credentials without permission, the bank was required to report the incident to the Financial Crimes Division. I wouldn't have to press charges. The bank was pressing them. I hung up and walked to my window. Outside, the Texas sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. It was the first time in 3 days I had looked at something beautiful and felt it. What happened next was not dramatic. There was no courtroom showdown. No moment where Jessica broke down in front of a jury. Real justice, I learned, often happens quietly, behind closed doors, in the language of policies and procedures and federal regulations. The bank recovered the full $500,000. Every cent. It took 4 business days, not 5. On the 5th day, the money was back in my account, and I stared at the number on my screen until it blurred in front of me. Jessica was not charged with a crime. The bank decided not to pursue legal action once the funds were returned, though they permanently closed her accounts and flagged her in their internal system. She would not be able to open another account with that institution again. She would also find it difficult to get a bank account anywhere else. The flag followed her for years. But the real consequence was not financial. It was something I hadn't anticipated when I started my quiet campaign. My family chose sides. My mother called me the day after the money was returned. Her voice was colder than I had ever heard it. She said I had humiliated Jessica. She said I had gone behind everyone's back instead of handling it like family. She said I had shown who I really was. I listened to her for 10 minutes. When she was done, I said, I showed who I am. Someone who protects what she built. Someone who doesn't let people steal from her just because they share her blood. My mother hung up. I didn't hear from her for 3 months. When she finally called again, it was to tell me that Jessica had moved in with her. She was not working. She was not looking for a job. She spent her days on the couch, watching television, telling anyone who would listen that her sister had destroyed her life. I let her tell that story. I let her be the victim. Because I learned something in those weeks after the theft. Sometimes the greatest justice is not being the one who carries the weight of what happened. Sometimes it's letting the other person carry it alone. If you've made it this far in the story, I want to thank you. And I want to ask you something. Would you have done what I did? Would you have stayed silent for 3 days, collected evidence, let the system work, and walked away when your family told you that you were wrong? Drop a comment below. I want to know your story. Subscribe for more stories where the truth comes out. Next week, a mother who emptied her daughter's college fund for her boyfriend, and what happened when the daughter got a lawyer. You won't believe how it ends. A year after the theft, I bought my first house. A small place in Austin with a backyard and a garden. I planted tomatoes and herbs, and a rose bush my grandmother would have loved. I worked from home, took clients on my own terms, and started saving again. The number in my bank account grew, but I didn't check it as often. I didn't need to. Jessica never returned the money. She never apologized. She told our extended family that I had fabricated the whole thing, that the bank had made a mistake, that I was always looking for reasons to make her look bad. Some of them believed her. Some of them called me to ask what really happened. I told them the truth and let them decide. My father called me 6 months after my mother stopped speaking to me. He said he understood why I did it. He said he was proud of me. He also said he was staying out of it. I told him I didn't expect him to choose sides. I just wanted him to know that I had chosen myself, and I would never apologize for that. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You're more like your grandmother than you know." My grandmother was the one who raised Jessica for the first 11 years of her life. She was the one who taught me to be self-sufficient, to save my money, to trust myself when no one else did. When she died, she left me a small inheritance, $5,000, that I used to open my first investment account. I think about her sometimes when I check my balance. I think about what she would have said if she had seen what Jessica did. I think she would have smiled. And I think she would have said, "You handled it." Here is what I learned from watching my sister take $500,000 from my account and then watching my family ask me to forgive her. Forgiveness is not something you owe. It is something you give when the person who hurt you has done the work to earn it. And no one, not blood, not history, not guilt, gets to demand it from you. I am 29 now. I have my house, my garden, my clients, my peace. I have a life that I built with my own hands, piece by piece, dollar by dollar. And I have the memory of 3 days where I did nothing while my sister believed she had won, followed by the quiet satisfaction of watching the system do what it was designed to do. The bank called her, not me. And when they did, I didn't answer her calls. I didn't defend myself to my mother. I didn't try to explain. I just waited. I let the truth do what it always does when you give it enough time and enough evidence. It came out, and it didn't need me to say a word. If you are watching this, and you have been told that you owe your family your silence, your money, or your peace, please know that you don't. You can choose yourself. You can build a life that no one can take from you. And when someone tries, you can let the system work, let the evidence speak, and let the truth come out in its own time. My name is Emma. I'm 29 years old. And the day my sister stole $500,000 from my account, I sat in my car, watched it disappear, and smiled. Because I already knew how it would end. Subscribe for more stories where the truth comes out. Next week, a sister who stole $500,000. What happened in court will shock you. And tell me in the comments, would you have walked away or fought to prove your worth? I want to know your story.